Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's discussion on Sustainability Mafia's SusTalk, number 52. We have a very interesting topic today that we've actually not had a chance to cover before, and given the occasion of International Women's Day, which just took place about 3 or 4 days ago, we're delighted to have 3 women entrepreneurs working in climate tech here on the panel today. And we're going to be covering a range of topics on what it's like to sort of navigate this environment, this sector, and some of the areas around the company, building your company as, a gender diverse company, some of the overall biases in the sector, and what should be the path ahead. So some really interesting discussions. We're excited to take this forward. We have 3 excellent panelists today. We have Ranjita Ravi from Oxra Energy, which is in the EV motorcycle and mobility space. We have Radhica from Devic Earth, which is in the air pollution segment. And then we have Lakshmi from Renkube, who works who basically started a company in the renewables industry in the field of optical tracking of solar panels. So Radhika, Ranjita, and Lakshmi, delighted to have you all here to speak about this really relevant and important topic. And I suppose we'll start with sort of a general question to all of you, as you're building each of your companies. And, some of you are co-founders, some of you are single founders, and very curious to understand, from you, how, when you were thinking about actually the sort of structure of your teams, let's say your top management teams, and then eventually, the folks who are sort of on the ground, data engineers, and sort of sales folks, marketing, etc. How did you think very consciously about the type of company that you were building, being a woman founder, and from the industries that you had come from before, starting your own companies, the sort of decision that you've taken to become entrepreneurs, and particularly entrepreneurs in the climate tech space? How did you sort of formulate your thinking around the kind of culture that you wanted to create within your companies, and how gender and diversity plays a role in that? So perhaps, Ranjita, we could start with you, and please feel free to share your thoughts and move on to the next panelist.
Hey, thanks, Priya. So that's an interesting question, which is made particularly difficult by this segment and the product that we have. So we have a rule in Orha that we hire only bikers, right? So finding lady bikers is quite challenging. So now the situation is changing. So we grew from we were about 15 to 20 people for the first 7 years or so. And since about July of last year, we have grown from 20 to about 60 nearly right now. And now I see the diversity trickling in only now. So one of the first engineers, women engineers that we were hiring for electronics was coming from Chennai, and she's like, yeah, I ride a bullet and I'm really excited to come, right? So since we put certain criteria in our own company as to who we hire and what is the kind of product they're building and how close they need to be to the product, hiring for diversity has been very challenging. Very challenging. So it's not just that just because you're a biker, you get in. Being a biker is a gate, and after that, you need to still pass all the engineering questions. So you need to be a good PCB designer, you need to be a good instrumentation designer, or you need to be a good mechanical engineer, you need to be a good whoever, right? After being a biker. So that in itself has made it difficult, but I am extremely happy with the team that we built in terms of the type of people and the energy that they bring and the passion that they bring to the product itself, because they're so close to the product. And I feel staying true to the values that you have as an organization is very important, not to just do something just for lip service, but to remain true to the ethos and the values of the organization. It will happen. You will continue to look for people that meet all of your values, that are aligned with your values, that are aligned with your with your mission, but you need to wait for it to happen. You need to keep looking. That's, yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Very, very valuable insights. So Radhika, I would love to turn to you now to sort of understand your perspectives, sort of reflecting on some of Ranjita's points around mission-aligned, teams, building those organizations, any of the difficulties that you experienced, kind of building a diverse team, and what are some of the positive attributes of having sort of a diverse team?
Yeah, so thanks first for having me here, and it's awesome to share the panel with these awesome founders. So first off, I'm not a founder, though I did join the company very early on, just about 3 months into the start of the company. So I have been instrumental in building the team. Yes, so I had the product development and the engineering. So for us, I mean, of course, we don't have Ranjita's constraints of trying to hire a certain kind of like biker or whatever. But in the field of environmental engineering, we're looking for like hardcore engineers and RF electronics engineers and things like that. But again, we have found it challenging to find women engineers, as in electronics and RF engineers, right? That has been challenging. I mean, the profile we receive are primarily male, and although I mean our team actually has a lot of women in general. I mean, we've got our marketing head is a woman, our directors are women. We've got women in heading operations. But in the engineering and product development team, it's been a little challenging because we are looking for people who like Ranjita, PCB manufacturing, no RF, and I don't know, for some reason we've just haven't those great profiles in women, right? So of course you've got great data analysts who are women, and so while we want to be completely open about, and we want to actually welcome women, and we have, in fact, our policies also cater to allowing, say, women, say if they have to work from home, or even the maternity and things like that, right? So we we've got our policies which are directed towards encouraging women to join. But I think in the hardcore engineering job, we still it's kind of more male dominated. But like Ranjita put it, I think if those values stand true, it's just a matter of time before you get that more diverse workforce.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'd love to come back to the policies and the kind of sort of institution building that you're doing to encourage women to stay on within their roles once they've started. So that we'll come back to. But Lakshmi, I think would love to hear your thoughts as well. Building Renkube, I understand that you're a co-founder, and you started this company after many years of being in the space. So curious to see what you've seen so far in sort of company building before you started Renkube, and then what kind of institution you're building being a sort of woman co-founder.
Sure. Thanks, Priya, for this wonderful opportunity, first of all, to be on this panel. And, I would love to share my thoughts. My experience, contrary to what I've heard from Radhika and Ranjita, has been like quite positive. So in terms of our team, the core team of founders, we are like 2 women founders and 2 male. And so it is, I would say, like a 50% diversity there. And our experience, just on the background of the founders, we all actually knew each other from our, corporate days at Cisco, and we came and started this. And so we have that kind of, the emotional connection and the close-knit community that you need, right, as the founding team driving together. So that was already there in place. And for us, in the initial years, it was quite, that time, like about 3 years back, the concept of renewable energy and sustainability, all these things were kind of in the very infancy stage. And that time it was like little hard to, I would say, just attract a talent with us, right, to join us and join in the vision of, building grounds up. And the product was also in very early stages. But going for so at all most of the times we are a very small team of about 6 to 7 people and 3 more interns, and we generally found that I used to receive a lot of women applicants approaching me than my male co-founder. So it was probably just they liked reaching out or were in the comfort zone of reaching out to women and knew that probably you would understand in terms of any kind of flexibilities or any issues that they wanted. And if you look at the core sector itself, like we work very closely with our panel manufacturers, and it's a hard core manufacturing industry. So I go on the production floor there, probably I'm the only women out there roaming around, and so like if I take a junior member in my team along, they naturally have this comfort zone that I have somebody senior to me out there, and who would also make me comfortable and give that heads up first of all that this is going to be the setup, don't get shocked, and you give the context, right, as to what kind of environment you enter in, and once you make them comfortable in their zones, and and we also were always open to structure the roles accordingly. So our core needs were like, building this product was like, right from some fixtures that we designed and to how things get assembled, it was all in mechanical and production engineering, and where mostly you find, male candidates. But as the years roll by, we used to get like equal number of inquiries, and typically the women, folks, when they reach out, they're not very vocal on what they want. They're like very hesitant and in their ask, even if it is a pay or on asking, so they just hesitate. So I know this candidate is going to hesitate, and I upfront, tell them that, if you have something, you please tell. There is nothing wrong in knowing about, how we operate and what type of things that you give that alignment to what they want to do and give them the comfort factor, so they are more than ready to sign up. And once we started getting this first, probably it was an intern, I was part of some mentoring in some climate tech event with KIC, and they came in, and we used to get a flood of application, more women than the so I was part of those circles and to get the talent pool there, and it was actually very interesting to see the shift. And then some of the roles, like where it's going to be like working very closely with like it's an unorganized sector, like we need to go to like some glass manufacturing industry in Firozabad, and it's a I know that it's not going to be safe for my female employee to be traveling out there. So I just, upfront put it and say, no, it's not something. So we really want, it's not that we as a company are against having women. So, but this is a kind of role which is more suitable for a male candidate, and hence, but since these are the other things that are open, and you're more than welcome to join us if you think, you can contribute your bit. And now with sustainability picking up big time, there's tremendous interest in, people joining startups in this area, and also I also see a steady flow of the masters and other courses being offered in sustainability. So we are getting a steady pool of talent out there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lakshmi. That was a really comprehensive sort of overview on all of the different areas that you touched upon, whether it's hiring for employees, the different kind of encouragement that you as a founder have to give, almost pre-anticipating the hesitations, etc., of these employees, but also, the influx of candidates and how you decide on them, choose them, given, the changing levels of excitement about the sector compared to when you first started. So that sort of leads me to my next question, which is more kind of on a broader industry level. So as leaders in your companies, you obviously interact not just with your team and your employees, but also with your customers, your suppliers, manufacturers, and then with investors and the broader ecosystem. So curious to hear your views, on any of the traditional gender biases that you think, have existed in the past that are slowly getting dispelled as more and more women leaders are coming up in operating businesses, etc. Or do you find that there is still a long way to go, that there needs to be a wider appreciation for, I would say, perhaps the place that women leaders have in this sector, and then any sort of, I would say, ecosystem building or knowledge or awareness that still needs to be done to this regard. So I guess we can start in a similar order, Ranjita, if you're able to shed some light on that from your experience.
Anecdotally, the funniest funniest or saddest, you can decide, investor conversation I've had is we finished multiple rounds of pitching. We started with online, then they went through initial sort of an information request, and then we went to the next stage, and then I was finally meeting one of the main people, the main co-founders of the investor. And this was fun. We were very interested. They were very interested. And then the person comes and tells me, we have a face-to-face meeting in Bangalore. They had flown down, and then we have a face-to-face meeting in a hotel in Bangalore. And he tells me, well, I can't imagine working with my wife, so I don't know how your co-founder works with you. But my co-founder is my spouse. And I'm like, okay, so you can't imagine working with your spouse. But I've been running this company for the last 7 years. We've not yet sunk the company, but yeah. So I think that stands out as the oddest, I suppose, interaction with an investor that I've had. There are regular questions about, so what about kids? Do you have kids? When are you planning to have kids? Etc. In an investor conversation or a customer conversation or even a vendor conversation. But that's, I suppose, you can call it par for the course. You got to learn how to bat for those googlies. That's it. But since then, I mean, that was about a couple of years ago. This last round of funding that we did, or the current round of fundraising that we've been doing, there have been no such odd questions about how do you work with your spouse? You must be like fighting all the time, and other such standard filmy tropes that sneak in. So they've been sneaking in a lot less. Is my feedback. So generally, there has been, I suppose, improvement in the understanding of co-founders who are also life partners, or just generally women founders, and what sort of roles they take up in the organization. So that's my two bits on that. It is improving. It is changing. There is a lot more awareness, and I'm frankly thankful for that, because I was genuinely considering flinging that person from the balcony of the hotel.
Well, thank you so much for being so sort of candid about this. And while the anecdote is very sort of shocking in some ways, it doesn't surprise us, and because these kinds of questions are quite commonplace, and people don't actually think twice before making those assumptions.
And they won't ask, right? So when my co-founder, or my spouse, he's a PhD and I'm the MBA. So that's how we split our roles, not because we're male or female or something. When he goes to an investor pitch, I've never heard him come back and tell me whether he was asked about his offspring or plans for future offspring, right? But I get that more often than he does. So
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think in very similar, types of parameters as well, not just on offspring, but also on age. People always assume that if you're a certain age, then, perhaps your attention is diverted elsewhere, and then, male co-founders / partners don't really get asked about their age or, their family size or their future plans. So completely hear you on that. Radhika, would love to hear your thoughts as well. In this industry, as you look to interface with various different kind of stakeholders, do you face sort of similar types of biases, or do you think it's changing in a positive way, or do you think additional work needs to be done to build that ecosystem?
So I have also a funny story, like Ranjita, just happened recently. So again, we were talking to these investors, and so this person had come down to Bangalore and had come to our office actually. And when the day he came to our office, our CEO, he was unwell, so we took it on. So the other two directors are female, and as I said, the chief operating officer is a woman. And then me, so we had about like four women in the room with one other male person, and then the investor, right? And first thing he looks and says, "Where are the men?" and we were just like, okay, I mean, this is us, and then of course, I mean, I think kind of retraced, and the conversation carried on and stuff. But what I have noticed, and especially because we work with government also a lot, so when as a technical head, I go to present in front of government, I'm usually the only woman in the room. I mean, it's all male, right? It's all male. But luckily, I have not had that held against me. I mean, I don't believe I was treated differently because of the woman. I mean, it was all for purely technical questions, and I do. I mean, sometimes I take my my colleague along, and it's not like he gets better treatment than I do or something, right? So I luckily I have not noticed that. So I think there's hope. I mean, there are people are accepting of women engineers and women leading in the field. So I think that there's hope. I think that way, if I have not had that bias show up anywhere. Though I have noticed, though usually the first time they start a conversation, they will direct their question to the male in the room. I mean, if they, right? I mean, they will just automatically look towards them. And then when I start speaking, and then of course, then the tables just turn. So then, then it's an even conversation. But yeah, these are, as Ranjita said, these are small things that you just learn to ignore and deal with on a thing. But I do see things changing. So yeah.
No, that's positive to hear, and this is it seems very sort of something that we just have to kind of be aware of as women working in any industry, really, knowing that being the only woman in the room is often a very commonplace sort of incident, and then also not having attention turned directly towards us when we're speaking, needing to develop that kind of credibility through the kind of points that you're making, and not immediately having it based on your qualifications and who you are and your position. So I think that is definitely still unfair and needs a long way to go, but good to hear that you think it's on its way to sort of being widely acknowledged. So Lakshmi, I would love to hear your thoughts also on this matter.
Yeah. So yeah, when we started our pitching round with the investors, we have heard stories like this about, you as a single women founder, you go and pitch, and so there are these inherent biases in the system. So we always used to go as a team together and pitch, and probably that has kind of leveled out. At least like the first meeting, right? Yeah, the first meeting you go in together, and probably the subsequent rounds, depending on the availability, you just split your roles. And at least you are together making your presence, that it's an equally diverse team. And then during the interactions, people also understand who stands where in the organization, how much they know, and it's So make your first impression the best impression the first time you're going, and unity is strength. So that's the strategy we followed, and I would definitely tell that to Ranjita or any early source. And the other thing that I've observed is if it is a young entrepreneur versus somebody in their middle age, there is a tremendous difference in the way they get treated, at least in your first ticket that you're going to raise in your pre-seed round, right? You wouldn't be seeing the same treatment in the subsequent rounds, but the first ticket that you raise, my advice to all the young entrepreneurs there, right? Especially you're young, people just assume you don't know, and you are women, it just drops down even further. And I have had particular assumptions, like I never used to, like, I didn't have this fancy of, like, I used to observe, like in these organizations, the traditional organizations, the government organization, having a Dr. so-and-so, Dr. Lakshmi, I never used to introduce. I used to just feel odd because that was not the way in which I had been working in the corporate life. We just used to address everybody by the first name. Then I say, see that if it is a government organization, that's the way you have to introduce. And you cannot afford to call somebody who's a doctor and not doctor. And they just take, they consider it as a personal hurt. So I used to understand these nuances, and I slowly shed away my shyness to say that, I'm a doctorate. And then after some time, I saw that just because you are introducing yourself as Dr. Lakshmi Santhanam, the people just assume that you're somebody who's just into the research and you don't know about anything about the organization. Then I say, like, I do everything that is needed for my organization. In the initial stages, it was about researching on the product, developing the product, and it was in a new area. So I had to put my strength in the prior art searchers and making the product. That was all in technical. But now no longer I'm in technical role. I'm the person who is taking care of the operations. You ask me what questions you want on the finances, what are the numbers that you want. So I go ahead and present the financial modeling to them, and okay, then they understand, okay, it's not like, you are just a PhD, then you are meant to know only about research and not. So that's the kind of assumptions. Probably, I don't know whether if it is like a male person, whether you would have to face the similar kind of things. And one lesson I learned is, like, when you're just first time going and interacting, just make your presence felt as much as possible so that you cut out these other noises that might arise out of it. And the other thing that I've noticed really help is they also judge you. The people also judge you in terms of how your male counterparts in your organization treat you. So if they are like giving the right respect and making it's nothing big, like just make this thing saying this person is doing these things and give this opportunity to introduction. That kind of sets a prior standard, and the other person is not going to take me for granted on anything, right? So those little things also help. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That makes so much sense. And I think establishing your own sense of respect and knowing that protocol before going into those meetings, making your presence heard, is a very important piece of advice, I think, to young entrepreneurs. So thanks for sharing that. And I think just a final question from my side, and feel free to also add in any other thoughts. And we've talked briefly about for younger entrepreneurs starting up, what would be your advice / mentorship for them in your own personal journeys. Have you had what would be the importance of mentorship? So people in your network, family members, your old bosses, women figures that you considered your role models, who have kind of helped guided you, to these leadership positions that you are in today and continue to do so. And on the reverse, are you also mentors to younger women in your organization or in the industry? That's one part of it. And the second part is, as you think about I'm not sure what stage you're at in terms of sort of growing your families or thinking about, your personal family life, etc. But how is that sort of factored into the way you're thinking of growing your companies? And most entrepreneurs think about starting their businesses between the ages of 30 to 40, which is also the exact time when people think about growing their families. So have you sort of faced any of your own kind of difficult challenges or decisions on, which path or how to sort of manage both of these sort of seemingly conflicting priorities, and what would be the best balance going forward. So I think we'll switch around the order. Maybe Lakshmi, if you'd like to go first, and then we can move to Radhika and then Ranjita.
Thanks, Priya. Yeah, I have a lot of things to say there, but I'll keep it short. So in terms of the mentorship that I got, actually, I have found like strength in fellow women leaders, right? Like I have pitched when the first time that I wanted to have a sign up with a panel manufacturer, I'd pitched the idea of, the partnership with about like 50 of them. And, the final champion who emerged out to support us was actually a female leader. So we are partnered with Select Energy System, and the director of Select is Mrinalini Chellapan. She is an emerging leader in the renewable energy sector. And so we could relate a lot on the synergies, and so I've found a lot of strength. And this is also being replicated in few of the other suppliers in the glass industry, where I've seen like them coming, they're also like young women leaders who are stepping on into their family businesses and inheriting it from the next generation. So, and they've been more than happy to help us. And I found similar synergy in Telangana University, where we are having a pilot. So I just heard this, speech given by Dr. Kalpana ma'am. She was talking about the BIREC program. So I just pinged her. She was more than happy to welcome us aboard and, get us started on. So as a woman, I also feel going forward that, once I go to this position and if I see somebody reaching out to me, I would be more than happy to give that help. So on that part, so I go and actively, mentor, sign up for mentorship whenever I can with any kind of women accelerator programs or any. I also go for Mary College, where I've like done one, incubation session for whenever I can, those sessions for young entrepreneurs to inspire them. And it gives a lot of confidence to the young women out there. They are just like too shy. Like, as you said, right? Is my 20 to 30 the right time, or 30 to 40s is the right time? So that's always there. And in terms of myself as my family, I have 3 kids, but I don't usually tell that. I have like my younger set is the twins. And but if I tell that, people just assume that, I'm more focused there than what. So I probably tell only after I know that this person is not going to get the right, the wrong biases about me. Because like, how do you manage everything? Yeah, I still manage. I prioritize things whenever I have to. And you have that flexibility as a founder, right? And it's not something as a founder, you're doing a 9-to-5 job. It's my background thread is continuously running, thinking of my startup always. Yeah. And as a mother of 3 kids, like, I really want all my kids to look at I just condition them. I condition my son, especially like into his teens now, that to show that respect to his sisters, to his friends, and be more accommodative. And I also want them to explore their own careers. You need not just go into engineering or the traditional career path. There's so much in life. I tell to my son's friends, like, go out there on LinkedIn. You can see for yourself. There are like, it's not that you need to be A graded to follow any of their career paths. You go and ask anybody their algebra scores and math scores. It's not that something that people are going to ask for. So I just talk to them whenever I can.
No, fantastic. So great to hear, and super inspiring to know, how much you're juggling right now, but also not surprising because I know what kind of entrepreneur you are. And it just is a question of obviously prioritization and making sure that you have the right type of focus and drive. But also equally interesting to hear about the type of mentorship journey that you've had and that you're continue to give back to others. So Radhika, would be great to hear your thoughts as well, as both on the role model side and also on the personal side.
Yeah. So unlike Ranjita and Lakshmi, I started my entrepreneurship journey quite late. So I decided to do away with the kids and stuff, and then kind of start. So I mean, as Lakshmi wanted some gray hair, you can borrow some of mine. I mean, that does help. So, while it was not entrepreneurial, I mean, of course, you continue doing your job and everything, and of course, your family support is super important while you're juggling kids and a full-time job. I think how Lakshmi is doing it is very inspiring, because it is not a 9-to-5 job, and and even though I did work from home quite a bit, I think working from home you actually tend to spend a lot more hours than actually at work. So so I think what in terms of mentorship, it was just, I mean, I was just inspired by my dad, who constantly, kind of encouraged me to do that. And my husband, of course, was a great support and things like that. But I think in the entrepreneurial journey, I have met some amazing women who have been, really, kind of juggling both home and and finally I realized that there is really no work-life balance. I mean, you just have to kind of prioritize what you have to at that time and just move on, and there is no room for guilt. I think for all the young entrepreneurs there, I mean, there is no room for guilt. Your kids will be fine. I mean, and they grow up to be fine, and so you just have to kind of have that focus, and just kind of, as I said, prioritize what is needed at that time, right? And that's what when I mentor a lot of the women in my company and outside as well, is we really need to be focused on what we want to do, right? At the end of the day, what is the impact that we want to make in the world, right? And once you're focused on that, you automatically, the personal side will kind of, settle in, right? I mean, you just have to, make sure how you want to balance it. And there is no perfect balance. I have to say that. I mean, there's just no perfect balance. And I've seen both sides of the spectrum, and everything in between. I think there is just no one formula that works for women. I mean, I think, there is a need to, give time to your family. There is a need to, spend time on your career. And how as I said, that formula of balance really is up to every individual. And what I've learned is, the time that you're spending should be quality time. I mean, whether it's with your company, whether it's with your family. I mean, even if it's half an hour a day with your kids, I mean, that should be quality time. I think that's what counts, rather than, you're spending like 8 hours with them, but really there's no substance to it, right? So I think that's what counts. And children do look up to you as role models. I remember the first time when my older one, came home, and my boss at that time, I wanted to take some time off, and she said, "Don't do that, because your children are just going to look up to you and see what you're doing," right? And they're going, and I totally believe that. I think they look up to you today. My girls are 18 and 14, and they're very much independent. They have a mind of their own. They are go-getters. They are ready to kind of take on the world. So I think it's just I guess, as I said, how you prioritize your time, and what's the quality of time that you can, give them and give your company as well. So, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Radhika. And I think what really also struck me when you were talking is about that there's no set formula for how you balance this. It is, and like you said, quality time is the most valuable, and wonderful to hear that your children, I mean, having seen you going to work every day and building, companies, etc., they've gotten inspired to sort of follow in your footsteps or make their own path, but be equally driven. So great to hear that. And Ranjita, I would love to, close with some of your thoughts on this matter, both on the personal side and then also the type of mentorship you've received or valuable insights you've gotten over your career.
From an ex-kid perspective, just tacking a little point on, one of my earliest inspirations is, of course, my mom. My mom was a scientist. She's a retired scientist from DRDO. And when she retired from Sena Bhavan in Delhi. After her kids, that's me and my sister, older sister, were grown up, married, and my sister has her own kids, etc. She was working. She continued to work. At the end of her career, my parents were in a long distance relationship. When she was in Sena Bhavan in Delhi, and my dad was working in his private organization here in Bangalore. So as a ex-kid of an inspirational mom, I can tell you that it really helps us. We see how that happens. We see it firsthand how that happens, and it really works for us. On a personal side, okay, no kids yet, but several losses. So we had my co-founder and we are life partners as well. And in 3 years, we lost. In the last 3 years, we lost 4 family members, either through long illnesses or through sudden loss, etc., etc. And what happens when you have a parent or someone going through a long illness and you know that's not going to finish? I mean, it's not going to finish well. And how you run a startup through that, and how you partner each other. It's interesting, and it's important to know where that balance is. And usually the balance is pretty much 100% of the time from everyone, is what I feel. It's like you're both trying to be, I think they say there's a joke, right? It's like you're both trying to be 60-40, where both of you are trying to do 60% all of the time. Right? So, and there has been backlash to this. So this was when I was still working, as in working in another organization, in a private organization, and I did have a female boss. And we had this family member, my immediate family member, with a fatal long-term illness, and had to go to docs, had to go for chemo once a week. And she's like, "Oh, you have a typical Indian daughter-in-law problem." Like, no, I don't have a typical daughter-in-law problem. I just am taking care of a family member, and we alternate taking care of the family member, and we are doing this in a structure that works the best for everyone. I'm not gone from work 100% of the time. I'm not gone from her 100% of the time either. So I feel that in different organizations, and as a leader, in my own organization, empathy maybe just not. It's said a lot, but it's not really used a lot. When something so flippant is said in a very easy team review or in a one-on-one review. And I can tell you that 5 years later, it's still cut deep. Huh? 5 years after that conversation, it did still cut deep. And it's not a typical Indian problem. It's just, that's such a silly thing to say. It's a person with requirement of care, and we are alternating care. That person does require care. Right? And it's empathy is something that's said a lot and not really practiced a lot. And I would say for everyone here in your organizations, and if you are starting up, having been on both sides of it, right? As a founder, now I see my teammates going through certain issues, and COVID was bad for a lot of my teammates. Or as someone who was on the receiving end of such a casual sentence, people talk empathy a lot, but I would say practice this a little bit, or just understand what that means, or try to see what that means. But work-life balance is non-existent, of course. There is no such thing. There is no clear-cut distinction between when work ends and when life starts as a founder. But what really helps is a good understanding with your family of who you are, what you do, and what's a priority at what point of time. If caregiving is a priority, caregiving is a priority. That's there on the to-do list. It's as important as closing the deal. We closed the fundraise while caregiving for someone with so if life happens, so don't stress It is stressful. Life is stressful. These things happen to all future founders and current young founders. Life happens, loss happens, happy things happen.
Yeah, it's a combination of all of them. Yeah.
It's a roller coaster, so enjoy the ride.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a roller coaster, enjoy the ride. It is only ups and downs. So as long as you're having fun with the person sitting next to you, nothing else to it.
Yeah. And what a great way to summarize and end our discussion. So thank you to all of you for such an inspiring, set of insights and advice to future entrepreneurs who are women, and also kind of broad thoughts on the industry, I think, and building your teams. It's been really wonderful listening to you, as you as we discuss and kind of sort of in a way, in a sense, commiserate with some of the anecdotes that we've all been through, but also there's a lot of hope for the future, and we hope that encouraging more women to come into this industry and the next generation as well will really make a huge difference, both to the type of teams that we're trying to create, but also to sustainability as a whole. And as Sus Mafia, that's one of our biggest goals, is to make sustainability the default choice and to bring in as much diversity as possible to achieve that outcome. So thank you so much once again. We'll pause the recording now, and then we'll open it up for questions from the rest of the audience. So Sharmila, we can go ahead and